Two, one. Welcome to the Creative Marketing Show. How you doing? Good to have you here. My name is Rosh, and in this week's show, we're talking about the benefits of social media marketing. And there's so much to this. I mean, social media has just infiltrated so much of our lives, and some of it's business related, and some of it's not. And I'm focusing in obviously on the business side, the marketing side of social media. And I think people forget what we have at our fingertips that we did not have not that long ago. I remember in the beginning of my touring and speaking on social media, I think I was in Phoenix, and I was talking about Facebook and the value of Facebook. This is like 2008 and 9, and people in the front row kind of had their arms crossed like this, and they're like, "Yeah." And I showed an example of a page, and on the page was a picture of a guy riding a bike, and a guy in the front row, literally points like, I really don't care that person is riding a bike. Why would I care that person is riding a bike? Well, this room was full of photographers, and I turned around and I said, "Oh, well, that's Joe. He's getting ready to bike across town." It says that right on the below the picture, getting ready to bike across town. I said, "Joe's an art director. Joe hires photographers. I now know we're friends, but I do now know he likes to bike across town." That's a little bit of information that I can use in terms of conversations and connecting. If I'm a bike rider, I like riding bikes, which I do. I can talk about bikes with him, and I know that. And it's not a conversation where tears are going to roll down his eyes because he doesn't care about bikes. I know he cares about bikes. Now, you can say that's a little bit of an intrusion, possibly, but no. Joe shared that information with his community, which I am a part of. And that is the value in terms of a basic level. And so I think that person did understand at that point, and there was that big conversation. I don't care what you had for lunch. Yeah, I do. I want to know what kind of food you like, especially if we're talking business. Now, I mean, not every single tweet and not every single post on Facebook is something that I care about, but to have that deeper connection, that knowledge, when I see people that I haven't seen for a year, they know a lot of what's going on in my family. And if I care to allow them into my world, and we can immediately just continue where we left off without a lot of information that really didn't, it would take some time. We can really kind of move forward and, just update a couple things and move on. And if it's a business relationship, just get into the business side of things and maybe look forward a little bit more. So there are a lot of benefits to the business side, just the informational portion, not just on your clients or your prospects, but industry information that is available at your fingertips as information is released on Twitter, as information is released on all the various platforms, insights. This is valuable stuff that can help you grow your business. Now, there's much more than that, and I want to talk about the dangers too, because there are some dangers, and I have a few things to mention in a moment. I'm also want to talk about different ways to better engage with your social media, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment also. But here's the thing. When it comes to marketing, and those of you who watch this show, listen to this podcast, those of you in the photo community for years have heard this over and over again. Awareness, traffic, conversions, and retention. We can sing it in our sleep. We know it. We've talked about it so much. Awareness, traffic, conversions, and retention. And the great thing about social media marketing is that social media touches on all four of those areas, which I'm going to get into in a moment. And I encourage you, if you've never listened to this part of the conversation, to go back and listen to it a second time. If you have, and you don't want to hear it again, move forward about 5 minutes and you can hear the rest later. You can hear the other stuff that I wanted to talk about, which is very important. So let's talk awareness. Awareness. That's your brand. And when you're in social media and you're there regularly, people see your name, your brand. And if you're a professional writer, photographer, videographer, accountant, it doesn't matter. If your name is out there and you're engaging with people on a regular basis, you are staying top of mind. Here's the thing. For years, we've always wondered, how can we stay top of mind with the people that we've met at a networking group, at a conference? I met a guy, my family and I were in Santa Fe at a hotel. And we're just hanging out in the pool area. And there's a guy who was very interesting, and we're able to connect via LinkedIn. Opportunities for business in the future? Yeah, very possible. Now, this was a number of years ago, but there was development that could happen. I've been at so many conferences in which I've connected people and still have connections with today. I mean, the point is, how can you follow up with somebody? We show a portfolio, give a presentation. How do you follow up without being that person? Just passively connecting with people on LinkedIn. If it's all business, if you have a little bit deeper relationship, maybe you consider them someone you'd allow into your personal circle, like on Facebook. That's even better, or however you want to connect. And now you can passively be seen in front of them, reminded, oh yeah, I need to follow up with them. So building those connections in a passive way, or being able to connect with people in a way that is not hardcore pounding on their hood kind of connecting, that is super powerful. It's an age-old salesperson's dilemma. How often and how much do you follow up? And here we have it at our fingertips. And for a while, especially in the early days, people's like, I don't have time for that. You don't have time to solve the age-old dilemma? Of course you do. And so that is why the awareness, and you can drive awareness with social on your blog, and sharing that in Twitter, your information, stuff you creating your own distribution channel, create your own channels. A channel builder, something we talk a lot about on this channel. We talk about channel building, your Instagram channel, your Facebook channel, your YouTube channel, Vimeo channel, whatever channel you're creating. There are many things that are similar, but also some specifics that are a little bit different. So it's important to understand how to build these channels to develop awareness of your brand. Social media can help you drive traffic to your website. You can do this just by posting, as we mentioned, in Twitter and drive the traffic. Pinterest is still a great way if you do it right. Using hashtags on Pinterest is a good way to go about it. Using hashtags on hashtags are across the board. Pinterest and YouTube and Instagram, obviously, and Twitter, where it all started. Hashtags are a good way in which people can find you under a topic. But it's becoming very interesting over on Pinterest. But all these different platforms can drive traffic to your website and blog, which can help ultimately your social ranking, your search engine optimization ranking. And you can build more authority when people want to learn more and deeper about a subject. And now you become the authority that is offered that information. And maybe they read a few of your articles and they really start to appreciate the kind of information that you are offering to them. And now you have somebody who's actually a fan if they need your product or service down the road, they're probably going to knock on your door. And so that's really important. So I often get the question, how about conversions? How in the world can social media help you with conversions? There are a number of ways, but I think the most important way is, let's take a step back and think about conversions, sales. When do people buy from you? They buy from you when they trust you. It's something that's very clear. If you trust somebody, you're more willing to buy from them. How does trust happen? Becoming familiar with somebody. And as you become familiar with the brand, you know their name, you know the people, you feel like you have a connection to them. That makes it a lot easier. If you see a special offer from a company who you have actually engaged with, you may be more apt to take that offer. So that's something you should really consider. So softening the ground, that's the number one thing. There are a number of things, but I think that's by far by far the number one thing. But, you know, some other things you can consider certainly are the ability to test, try out new things, this playground we have on social media to test headlines, test concepts, offer polls. Polls can be super valuable. I've been doing polls on Twitter for a while, and I get great information. It helps conversions because I know what people actually care about. You know, you have a product, you have your service, and you think you know what people actually care about, but do you really? So using the polling systems, figuring out the headlines, what's working and what's not, can give you an advantage before you actually spend the money on the paid advertising. Test it out in social media first. It's an excellent testing ground. Now, the last one, retention, customer service. Customer service is so important, but different companies have different levels of need for customer service depending on the type of product or service it is. Sometimes it's just understanding what are people complaining about in the industry. If you understand what people are complaining about in the industry, you can jump in front of the curve and actually fix it before it's necessarily a problem for your business. Maybe you have a small business. You know, maybe you have a small shop somewhere. Maybe you are an independent freelancer. And if you look and see what are most people complaining about in my freelance business or my area of freelance, look it up. Look it up, and you can use that information to improve retention, but also you can keep an eye out and see what people are complaining about, and you can then respond. Social media, you know, the pluses and minuses of a Google or a Yelp where people can review you, Facebook, but you know, you have the opportunity to respond, and sometimes those responses are highly valuable, and letting people know that when you respond to them, when people comment about you, you respond to them and do it with grace. And when you do that, that's going to make a difference and an opportunity. And people find that you're real, you're genuine. Hey, maybe you make mistakes, but you're willing to correct them. That's a customer service element. But sometimes you didn't even know that the bride didn't like her photographs. Maybe you didn't know that, you know, they thought your service was horrible at your retail store. So there are a number of ways to look at this. Is the information about what people may or may not be saying about you or your industry can be golden, and it'll give you the opportunity to do a better job next time for one, or correct the situation, whether you knew of the situation or not. So I find that highly, highly valuable. So awareness, traffic, conversions, and retention in social media applies to all of those things. And not only that, you can get offers. You can drive people to a opt-in page, to a lead magnet. It's often referred to, where maybe you want people who are interested in a specific topic, and you create a nice little ebook, white paper, video, whatever it may be, a little course, and they can get it for free just by offering the email. You know, they need someone to solve a problem for them. And so they download it, you get the email, and now you have the opportunity to actually email them with other offers. So you don't necessarily want to sell directly on social media, but you definitely can gather the people together who are most likely interested in what you have to offer. And as that happens, as more and more people start to get involved in your community, start to talk about your community, you're going to find more opportunities. You're going to find more opportunities, but you have to take action. You do need to, I think, in many cases, collect that email list. But you also, if you're going to collect emails, you need to be active with those emails. Make sure you're connecting and building relationships with people. You don't want to collect emails for a year and then do nothing. Believe me, I've been there. I've done that a number of times, had some great success collecting emails. But in the end, I really didn't profit from the emails because I didn't do anything with them. So make sure you have a plan around that, and a follow-up plan of 3 or 4 or 5 emails in which you're then going to ultimately ask for the sale a little bit more and more through each email, and give opportunities. All right. So there you go. Awareness, traffic, conversions. Now the dangers, something I talked about, putting all of your eggs in one basket. Today, they announced that Path is shutting down. If you're familiar with Path, it came around 2011, a social media, I believe it's mobile only. I did get involved in the early days, didn't find much value in it. It didn't seem to go anywhere. But whenever something new comes around that I find, I sign up for it. And I signed up for Path, and now we hear that it's being shut down. Well, if you had you can download your data. You have till middle, I think next month, October, to do so. If you have data there, if you were involved at one time. But, you have sites like Vine. Vine was a big one, and it was shut down. Google Plus, not shut down, but it is kind of a desert out there if you're in Google Plus. There are little pockets of communities, but not very much. So there are dangers of putting all of your eggs in one basket. There are advantages to jumping in early. And if something starts to take off, you can become an influencer at a higher level earlier because the path to gaining followers is a lot lower. Early on with Instagram, when it was available for Android, I was getting a lot of subscribers with every post. And I don't have a lot of subscribers on Instagram, 800 and some, but that's because I'm not posting all the time. But I do get new subscribers when I post, and I just post things that are of interest to me. So I'm using just Instagram as a general, here's who I am, this is what I find interesting. I think what I want to do, this is something I plan to do a little bit more, and I think I've said this aloud before, I'm not sure. But what I'd like to do more and more is create an image, something I find interesting, and then just do something live, quick video or part of a story, and just share. This is why I posted this to my Instagram, because I thought it was interesting. This is why I thought it was interesting. This is why I thought the light was interesting. The subject matter was interesting. The composition, whatever it may be, why I took that photograph. I think that's a good way to go, to offer kind of a multi-tier approach to your social media. So there are dangers of putting all of your eggs in one basket. I think if you're in Twitter and Facebook, remember, they're talking Twitter shutting down at one point. But, it seems like Twitter seems to be doing a little bit better these days than what it was. But you never know. There is a life cycle to everything. And, eventually Facebook may be no more. We'll wonder, how the heck did Facebook die? But it could. It could. So having multiple channels, I think, is good. But I do think you need to have a core channel to work off of. Make sure you work off of a core channel. For me, I've made mine a couple of years ago. I turned my core channel into YouTube. For years, it was Twitter. And getting verified on Twitter is a cool thing for me. And I still like the community. I still share there. But there's one thing for sure that when you're doing your social media marketing is that you don't do it enough. You probably say to yourself, man, I should do more YouTube videos, or I should do more Instagram posts, or whatever it may be. But whatever you do, whatever your main channel is, be sure that you're highly engaged. Yes, you want to do more on the other channels, but make sure that your main channel, or two, depending on how much time you have, you are highly engaged. You are responding to everyone. You're connecting with people, and you're going outside of not just responding, but you're finding new communities within that channel. So you're finding new YouTube communities, new Instagram communities and when I say communities, it's really a group of people who comment on each other's stuff and share each other's stuff and maybe DM each other on Instagram, whatever it may be. But just build the communities that are strong. So you have at least one. You don't have to worry about commenting on all of them, although it is the best practice. I'm often asked, how often should you post for your Instagram, not just your Instagram, but your social media marketing? And it's pretty much straightforward. I say post as often. Now, every platform is a little different, but post as often as you can, and to the point, quality or engagement drops off. And the engagement part is where the the social media platform will tell you, where posting a couple, 3 times a day is fine for one platform, but you could do it 10 times a day on another platform. At what point do you stop? Well, when engagement starts to drop off, let's say you get 5 comments on average, and then you start to get, with your first 5, you get 5 comments, but now you're 7 or 8 comments, you only get 2 or 3. Well, your engagement is dropping off. And so they're getting burned out on you. So pull it back to the 5 or even 4. Rather want them a little bit more, wanting you a little bit more, not to get burned out. You don't want people to get burned out on you. So, if it's on YouTube, maybe once a day is way too much for people. They can only handle so much of you. And believe me, I'm sure I'm one of those people. But I keep producing more and more content because I have to keep it going. Otherwise, I'll fade off. And next thing you know, it's 2 months later. And I've done that with a lot of platforms. Instagram is a good example. The podcast at times has been a great example where I kind of gave myself a little break and I took too much of a break. So continuously producing the content you have to decide for you too, what is right. I wanted to share this little bit of information that I've been looking at related to blog posts. Blogging is still relevant in social media, and it is social media because people can comment to the content creator. And, before you truly hit that ready to hit that publish button, the one thing you need to do is, sometimes we're worried, is it perfect? Is it perfect? Well, you think, I just need to go through it a little bit more. Well, my blog posts are scheduled to release at 9:00 Eastern Standard Time. And so that's when they are released. So if I start looking at my new blog post at 10 in the morning and beyond during the day, I will then look at the first 2, 3, 4 sentences and make sure they're as good as they possibly can be. And then I'll hit publish. Why only the first 2 or 3? Because most people are only reading those first 2, 3, 4 sentences, or not sentences, paragraphs. And so as long as those are solid, 60, 70% of the people will be satisfied and get the information they're looking for. And hopefully I'm pulling them in deeper, and it depends on the post, of course. But I can then continue to go back. I've released it, but I can go back throughout the day and make corrections on the other, maybe, 60, 80% of the article. Maybe it's 1,000 words and it's the first 100, 200 words I've hyper corrected to the level that I want it to be, that I'm capable of doing. And if it's really super important, I'll have other people look at it and edit it, or even hire an editor. There's nothing wrong with hiring an editor. But when you publish a lot, sometimes that gets expensive. So instead of worrying about the 1,000 words, 2,000 words all the way through, just take the time. Make sure that those first few paragraphs are awesome, and then let it go. And if you want to go back through, and maybe some of your community will say, hey, but that word is wrong. And that's fine, because only a small percentage of those people will have noticed. And you thank them and you make an adjustment. But, there's so many tools such as Grammarly, as well as tools for WordPress that can really help you with making sure the spelling errors are out and you're using the right usage of the word. There are a lot of things you can do to nail it down the best you possibly can. And the thing is, once it's published, and I like to make sure I've gone through it at least one more time by the next morning, before that 9:00, it's going out to all the people who actually subscribe to the blog via email. I want to make sure I have it as good as possible. But again, as long as those first few paragraphs are good, I can then go back later for people who will view the post for years to come, because people do come back. And that's the nice thing about posting blogs, is that kind of like YouTube, it has a long shelf life, especially if it is evergreen content. Okay, so those of you who are most interested in social media, I want to know your questions. Put them in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. And if you want to catch me live and ask questions about your marketing and growing your business, take the time to put those questions in the comments below, but also hit the bell icon so you're notified when I go live, and you can then ask questions of me live related to your business, to the things that are most interest to you. All right. I am looking forward to talking to you next Monday when I go live. Usually these days have been 4 o'clock. This week it was 2 o'clock because I actually have a meeting, a nice photography client possibility. So I'm looking forward to that. It's great to have you all here in the replays. And of course, those of you who can make it live, I always appreciate that too. We'll talk to you next time. You have a great day.